Hi, my name is Kimberly Moses. I'm the chapter president for the SEIU chapter for the Port of Oakland.
And you were a candidate and saw this election here at SEIU 1021. What's your assessment of what happened?
Yes, I was a candidate, and really I would like to take this opportunity to talk about the process. We had an election that was a mail ballot election where the ballots were due on March 4th. The final count of the number of ballots they claimed by the contractor that we hired, Global Election Services, was about 3,500, of which 3,400 of those ballots roughly were counted. Now this is out of a membership of over 47,000 members from the top of Northern California to the southern end of Alameda County. So that's a tremendously low number of ballots. When we went into in terms of the process, one of the things that I think was objectionable was how staff of 1021 was forbidden from even letting members know that there was an election. I mean, Service Employees Union, we have maintenance workers, we have custodians, we have, several occupations where they're not sitting in front of a computer and may not even check their mail necessarily unless, they're, told to look for something. We have staff that's out in the field that engage with members that people that would be running for these offices may not get to. You couldn't be expected to touch over 50,000 members, letting them know that you're running for office. So the fact that staff couldn't even say, hey, the local is having an election for the executive board, be sure you're going to get a ballot in the mail, be sure to watch for it, they're due in by March 4th, be sure that you vote, and if you have any questions, refer them to the election notice materials. I don't see anything wrong with that. So the fact that they weren't even allowed to do that was...
How do you mean they weren't allowed? Why? Who told them they couldn't do it?
Well, there was actually written instructions given to staff, and it is posted on the SEIU 1021 website.
Who was the official that told them they couldn't say anything about the election?
I believe their operations manager's name is Seth Schapiro, and that's who drafted this instruction. But it is on the website if anybody cares to look at it. But this was a direction that was given to the staff members, of which I believe that there are some challenges to that as well that might be coming. So, but that's part of, I believe, what has disenfranchised our members from even knowing that there was an election. Out of the ballots that were mailed, they reported, Global Election Services reported, that there were over 1,300 ballots that were undelivered. On the envelope, the return address was to their corporate offices in New York. So that posed the question, were they mailed out from New York? The DOL...
Didn't they tell the candidates how this was happening?
No, there wasn't any formal discussion of what the process was going to be. They sent out the election notice. We had a bunch of rules of which the election was to be governed. And that's the only direction that we received as candidates, or members for that matter, was this election notice.
So the administration was aware of what was happening in the election process.
Sure.
But all the candidates were not informed that what was going on.
Well, in particular, since you're allowed to have observers when they mail out the ballots, if they mailed out the ballots from New York, I don't know how there would be a chance to have any observers watching ballots being mailed out for a California election. So, but, when we did ask these questions, we did not get a definitive answer. So I'm not exactly sure.
What do you think about Global Election Services? They say they have run many elections and they're professional. They also, on their website, say that they help keep people in office. Do you think that that's a contradiction?
Well, it certainly is a contradiction. If that's what they pledged to do, they succeeded in doing that. But they did not succeed in running a professional and well-organized election. They had equipment that wasn't working, scanners that wouldn't scan, problems with licensing for the software, to where the local had to spend additional money for a hand count that produced numbers that changed one particular seat where someone was projected to have one that actually lost that seat, and where every single office had a variance of the numbers, which the owner assured us that the count was accurate. Even though it was wrought with all these problems, assured us that the count was accurate. There was a hand election that was done, and not one seat had an accurate number from the original electronic tabulation of those ballots.
So do you think that the election should be rerun in SEIU 1021?
The only conscionable thing that could happen would be a re-election. Not for the fact that, you know, that I didn't win, out of this tabulated election, but the process, that I truly believe that members have been disenfranchised. These are dues paying members whose dues are going towards the hiring of this contractor. I feel this contractor also should be reimbursing us for the hand count that we had to also pony up additional money to have done.
I understand upwards of $200,000 was spent on this election, and if only, how many people voted? 3,700 people voted. It's about $58 a ballot. I mean, it sounds incredibly high to get an election.
It sounds incredibly high for such a raggedy election. And actually the number is 3,500 according to Global Election Services. So I think, just considering all things to be considered, that the fair thing to do is to properly notice, to let our members know, and to have a re-election. So those that were disenfranchised from the process would have the ability and exercise their right to vote.
And your message to Mary Kay Henry?
My message to Mary Kay Henry is that what I would like to see is for her not to discredit or throw out these election challenges. One of the process when you challenge an election is that it goes before her directly to consider, that she does not what's expedient but fair. And again, these aren't just a group of people that are just complaining that they lost. This is a group of people that are trying to have a voice for the membership that was not able to exercise their right to vote.
My name is John Wadsworth. We had a SEIU election recently, and a lot of things went wrong. A lot of people were really upset. A lot of member. There was a lot of things that went wrong. From the start, there was hardly any notification to most of the members. We had a very low member turnout, less than 500 members. We have more than 17,000 members in San Francisco, and we had very little participation. We had a company that came in that was tasked with doing the elections, Global Election Services, and what could go wrong went wrong. And this is with a seasoned company that's done over 7,000 elections, and so.
Don't they say they're going to help people stay in office?
That's what I see advertised on their website. We're very concerned about the results. We're very concerned about the results, and very concerned that member participation was so low. We feel like the results are not legitimate. They're not realistic.
What did you find? You were watching the ballots. What happened with the ballot counting that you saw problems with?
Well, there was a number of there were software issues, there were scanner issues. The ballots themselves were problematic, I really think that Global Election Services, needs to step up and reimburse SEIU for the money that's paid, and so to allow us to redo our elections. I think that the members deserve it. I think that they need to have a voice. 17,000 people in San Francisco. 500 is not a voice for 17,000 people.
My name is Brandon Dawkins. I am the current Chief Shop Steward of SEIU 1021, the San Francisco, the Public Health Chapter.
And you were one of the candidates in this election. What's your view of what happened in the election, what the issues you're concerned about?
Fraudulent, faulty, unfair, ridiculous, and it needs to be another election.
And why do you say that?
I say that because in San Francisco alone, we have close to 17,000 members. In the entire local, we have close to 57,000 members. Out of 57,000 members for the entire local, which is stretches across Northern California, only 3,400 members voted. That is ridiculous. We have a lot of members everywhere, and every member's voice needs to be heard.
And why did this happen?
Well, I'm gonna give you a little history on it. Back in 2013, the same election happened where we used a company called Global Election Services, who was picked out by the election committee. Election committee had decided to use the service back in 2013. There are 3 candidates running for president. Okay, the same exact thing happened in 2013, but none of our members knew about it back in 2013 because they hid it so well.
Who hid it?
The people who are currently in office, they hid it. They didn't want anybody to know what happened.
So are you talking about Roxanne Sanchez?
Yes.
You're saying she hid the problems with the election?
She hid the problems with the election. Now, no one knew that Sin Yi Poon, who was the opponent back in 2013, that she challenged the election, and within her challenge, it was the same exact things that we brought up this year. Okay, Sin Yi Poon said the exact same thing, that it was a fraudulent election. They swapped out equipment several times. Okay, then there was a whole bunch of ballots came out of nowhere. Okay, this is the same thing that happened, 3 years ago, and it still held truth today, where we had a hand count and electronic count, and the numbers were very different. During the electronic count, we actually had a candidate that won. Okay, and when the email came out from the election committee saying that there was going to be a hand count, that hand count happened, and the person who had won lost in the hand count.
What about your members? I mean, San Francisco has the largest number of votes. A lot of your members, you say, didn't get ballots or didn't know there was an election. How could that be?
We had members who didn't receive ballots, but received the slate cards from the other slate. Okay, now, if they said that that the ballots were undeliverable to their addresses, how did they get the slate cards in the mail? You get what I'm saying? So that's something that was funny from the start. Okay, you want me to vote, but you're going to send me a slate card. Okay, but then I'm not going to get a ballot weeks later. And then when I call that phone number to Global Election Services to get a ballot, it takes me 2 days to get a hold of somebody. And then by the time they send out the ballots, if they even sent out the ballots, the election is over. There's something wrong with that picture.
And what do you think about the fact that the vote in Sonoma was so high compared to the vote in other regions of the SEIU 1021?
That truly baffles me, because just in San Francisco alone, like I mentioned previously, we have 17,000 members. Sonoma County is a lot smaller. Okay, they don't have as many members as they do in San Francisco and in Alameda County. And for them to have that high of a turnout of votes, versus San Francisco, who barely, had 2,000, that is ridiculous.
Do you think the staff was directed by Roxanne Sanchez in Sonoma to organize to get out a high vote?
The staff in Sonoma County, I believe that they were organized to get out the high vote. Meanwhile, the staff in San Francisco and in Alameda counties were basically had their jobs threatened. You even talk about this election, you'll get fired. They couldn't even talk about the election after work hours. After 5 o'clock, that's their own time. They should be able to talk about whatever they want to talk about, and they should be able to do what they want to do because it's their free time. But yet the union is controlling them after hours, where their jobs are threatened. And some of the staff members were depending on the reach slate to win because they know how corrupt it is. They know how it is.
Now, Roxanne Sanchez apparently has been charged with bullying, workplace bullying against members of the staff. Do you know about that, and do you think that there's validity to that?
I think there's some validity to that. I mean, I question a lot of stuff, not just about her, but about the entire union. Okay, you're the president of SEIU 1021, but then you have an executive director of SEIU 1021 who seems to have more control over the president. Okay, and the members voted her in. So you mean to tell me that the members don't have a say-so? So what, you're bringing in all these people from CNA to come in and control SEIU 1021, and the members don't have a say-so, and we're paying the dues, we paying their salaries, we paying for them to eat? We need to have a say-so. This is our money you messing with.
And what are your words to Mary Kay Henry, the president of SEIU?
Mary Kay Henry, it's about time that you find out what's really going on in San Francisco. It's about time that you really find out what's going on in 1021.
My name is Karen Joubert. I am a member of Laguna Honda chapter. I first of all would like to say thank you to all our members who exercised their right to vote in the last SEIU Local 10-1 Executive Board elections. I then would also like to say I am sorry for those who did not get the opportunity to exercise their right that their dues paying provides them with, such as 1, information, knowledge of an election, 2, the opportunity to meet the candidates that are running and to have conversations with the candidates, and then to exercise that valuable right to place their ballot in a mailbox and vote for who they would like to see be a part of the leadership for SEIU Local 10-1, a union that stands by being member-driven. I also would like to say I apologize for their dues money, each of our members, that was spent up to an excess amount of almost $200,000 of dues money, hard-earned money that you as members are having come out of your paychecks on a daily, constant basis so that the union will do the right thing. Be transparent. This election was not transparent, nor was it member-driven. This is against the principles of what the union stands for and what our members deserve. We had members who were excited to have the opportunity to be a part of this 2016 election. That opportunity was saddened because they didn't get the opportunity to vote. I say that with all of the flaws, all of the things that took place, from an electronic count that did not work to a hand count that did not work, because how can someone who had won on an electronic count then have a hand count and they had lost? But you say there were no change in ballots, there was no new ballots, so the same ballots, you should get the same result. That did not take place. So I am saying today that I'm asking and encouraging our members, if you did not receive your ballot, if you didn't get the opportunity to vote, I'm asking you to speak up. Please make your voices heard and ask for a re-election. I'm asking you to also contact your international president, Mary Kay Henry, and I'm asking her, once she receives these notifications from our members who did not have the right, please, I'm asking you to do the right thing and call for a re-election. This is what a member-driven union looks like, driven by the members.
Now, were you provided, you were the candidate for president, were you provided the same information about the election process as the people that you were running against, the leadership of the union?
I was provided some notifications. I can't say it's the same because I'm not sure what they received and what I received. But I did receive election notification. I did not receive where ballots that were undeliverable, notifications of who of those people who did not receive their ballots, or an accurate account of that. I wasn't able to observe those ballots that were returned, nor to know where were those ballots returned to. So no, I was not afforded that right.
Now, this election slate that you were running against, apparently on their notices that they mailed out, said when the election ballots were going to be received, 2 days. Why don't you talk about how that could be when you weren't provided that same information?
Actually, that was general information that was sent out. The general information that we received as candidates said that ballots would be being mailed out between the 4th through the 11th of February 2016. What the opposite slate sent out was an actual date of 2 days from a certain date. So different information. Our slate followed the guidelines that was sent to each one of our candidates that said ballots would be dropped from the 4th of February through the 11th. And if you had not received your ballot, you must call an 800 number that was provided to us. You had until February the 24th, 2016. Several of our members of 10 to 1 were calling the 800 number that was provided. They did not receive ballots. They were only allowed to leave a message. And then some of those, when they received the ballot, they received a ballot from a different jurisdiction of which they would not have the opportunity to actually vote.
Do you think this is a rigged election?
I would say the whole process was rigged. The process was rigged, and it shows that this is not just a first time. Statistics are showing by the certification that was received in 2013, as well as this certification that was received in 2016, shows a rigging of the election. Tell me why, when we are taking on new people to become members of SEIU 10 to 1, we have a turnout to vote in an election for the executive board, only 3,430 tabulated ballots. In 2013, we only had 3,700 people to vote. When we are taking on new members, the numbers should have gone up. So rigged, yes, I think that's a nice term to say.
And I mean, the cost of the election, upwards of $200,000, and it works out to approximately $58 a vote in an election. What does that say about the whole election process? They're spending, for the union, the members are spending $58 for every vote in an election?
Yes, this is not being accountable and responsible for our members and considering their hard-earned earnings and their families, nor are we considering the community that we care about when we're going to spend $58 per ballot for an election that some say was $80,000, some say up to $200,000. Are we being transparent with our members' money? Are we being accountable? Are we being good stewards of the resources that our membership in these times? I would say no. In economic times where we consider all factors, our members, their families, the communities, this is not being fiscally sound.
Hi, my name is Yvonne Johnson-Miller. I am a 41-year employee for the City and County of San Francisco. I work for the San Francisco Unified School District. I am a chief steward for my chapter, former vice president for my chapter, and have been an e-board member.
And what happened in this election? You were a candidate. What did you see as some of the problems and the issues in the election?
Well, what I saw the day that they were counting the election, it was totally a mess. I've never seen anything like this in my life, that it take you I would say at least 15 hours to count the ballots. I saw them counting ballots, putting them in a scanner, going from one computer to another computer, at least 3 computers, and still they could not give a count of who had won. I saw them take data from another computer and put it into another computer, saying that they didn't have any more space or room for that information. And it still took them at least 4 to 5 more hours to count that. I spent a total of 19 hours there. And my other colleagues had been there at least 50 hours, I would say.
And why is that? Why weren't, I mean, there weren't that many ballots. How come all these hours?
That's the real key to this whole thing. It was just crazy to me that so many ballots were printed. I believe it was over 60,000 ballots that was printed, and they owned, so many went out. And from what I understand, there was, I believe, about 13 to 17. It was 1,700 ballots received, I believe, and then so many had returned back to I think it's Global Services.
Global Election Services.
Yes, Global Election Services, and it was just weird. What I don't understand is why they didn't have a company here in San Francisco that could have done that job probably just as well.
And members did not know about the vote in San Francisco. The vote turnout was so low. Why was that?
You know, that's a good question. My rep never mentioned the election to me. She never said one word about the election. It was really strange because the years before, everybody knew about this election. But this time, it was like closed mouth. Only the secret society could know for some reason. And then when people found out about it, it was an election? What election? I didn't know we were having an election. We had our own chapter elections, and they thought, my members at the school district thought it was another chapter election. They had no idea it was for the whole, our own chapter, which is 10-1.
So you think that they kept the election a secret?
They kept it quiet, I think, to benefit them. I really believe that, yes.
And this company, Global Election Services, they spent $200,000, or apparently a lot of money for this company. Who is this company?
That's a good question. I never knew. They were not introduced to any of us when I got there, and another of my colleagues was with me. When we got there to the counting of the ballots, there was all of these different people there that I don't believe should have been there. And so I knew that our team was there, okay, and then the other team was there, but it was about 10 or 15 other people that were in there in that room I don't think should have been there. And no one introduced themselves. No one.
And do you think there should be another election in 1021?
Yes. It's so many different things that happen here that this election really should be thrown out. To be honest with you, it was just too many snafus. They should really, be to themselves and just say, listen, let's do this all over again, because everybody is questioning, why did this happen and why did that happen?
And what would you say to Mary Kay Henry, the president of SEIU, about the running of this election?
I would say to Mary Kay, SEIU 10-1, you guys need to have another election. I've been getting too many calls about it, and let's do this thing right.
There are members, you're saying, that are unhappy about what happened in the election?
As everyone I have talked to is very unhappy about it, and very surprised that SEIU 10-1 allowed this to happen.
And Roxanne Sanchez and the election committee has approved the election. They say there are no problems with it. What do you think about that?
I think that's a lie. There were plenty of problems. If it hadn't been any problems, it wouldn't have taken so long to count the ballots.
My name is Brenda Barrels, and I'm the chapter president at San Francisco General Hospital in San Francisco, and I was also a candidate in this last election for SEIU 1021.
So why don't you talk about what happened in the election and what your concerns are for the membership and for union democracy.
My first concern was that during the election, when it was before it even happened and before the votes got counted, I kept asking my rep, it's like, is there ever going to be any advertising about it? How are members going to know that there is an election? I had a concern about all of our members who didn't have computers. Because they said they put it on the website, but most of our members don't go to the website. Most of our members, a lot of them, don't have computers. And I wondered when they were going to start notifying people that the election was happening. And it never happened. And that was very disappointing that it never happened. And nobody can give me an explanation about why it didn't happen. It just didn't happen.
So what do you think should be done about this whole issue?
To me, this was so flawed from the very beginning. So many people have been disenfranchised about this election that this just needs to be thrown out. And it needs to be redone over, and it needs to be redone the right way. And the members need to not be disenfranchised. The fact that so few people got notified and voted, I know at my chapter there are a lot of active people that vote. When we have a chapter election, a lot of people vote. We usually get way over 1,000 votes. So to say that maybe, I don't know how many of the 400 and something votes that came out of all of San Francisco, there's something very wrong.
And how many members are in San Francisco?
I believe now there's like 14,000 members in San Francisco. That's a lot of people. And that's a lot of people that didn't get gotten to. There's a lot of people that haven't been communicated to by the union. And it's the same discommunication that happens around everything else, right? So a lot of people want to give some people the benefit of the doubt to say, oh, they wouldn't do that or it's not intentional. But this has been happening too long. It happened in the last election, before this one. It's happening in this election. It's the same thing. It's corruption. It's corruption. And whether it's pure corruption because they did it intentionally or is incompetence, it's something, because something is not right and it has to change. And this needs to be done over. They need to have much more member input. And people from every area should be on the election committee to make sure that it's truly fair.
And what are your words to Mary Kay Henry, the international president of the SEIU?
My words to Mary Kay Henry is you need to step up. You're supposed to represent us, right? I pay a lot of money out of my check to go for my union dues, and a lot of other members do the same. And a lot of that goes to the international, which you control and you spend. But your primary job of any union person should be to protect your membership. And you didn't do that. And you have an opportunity to do it. So we're looking for you to step up and protect us as members because we were not protected. We've been wronged and abused. And it's time for us to look to our leadership to correct this problem. And to the people that won based on this fiasco of an election, I'm saying same thing. You need to be trying to protect all of us. And it shouldn't be more important that you won than to have all these members that were disenfranchised. That is unacceptable. We will never stand for that. If people think this is just going to go away, it's not. The members have had it. We're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to deal with this anymore. This can never, ever, ever happen again.